Hey campers, a very, very good morning to you all. It is the Monday before Christmas and all through the house, lots of auction success. Not a sight of a mouse, thank God. I hope you're going well, my friends. It's been a mental last week or so. Lots of action all over the shop. I was communicating with people from every single state over the weekend, and the market was going bananas. It really, really was. Having a quick look at some of the statistics from the clearance rate, from the success rates around the grounds. Victoria, 85%. I mean, me and my team, we did 11 for 13, and there was some great success kicking around. New South Wales, 86%, which is amazing. Queensland, only 54%, but 1,600 successful sales across the state. South Australia, 71%, and an increase in numbers of auctions. Western Australia, sales results, again, 625, which is superb. ACT, rocking the show again at 90%. Such a good result for ACT. Tassie, private sales results, again, on the rise, which is good. Action everywhere, gang, which is superb to see as we head in towards this Christmas period, which all of us have suggested is going to be a very, very short one this year. Now, my friends, I want to introduce you to a few people. I want to introduce you to a few people that have started this thing called Project Optimism. It is a fascinating initiative, and I think as we get a second to sort of reflect on everything that's going on, I think it'd be a really, really good idea to sort of give ourselves a bit of a chance to see not the stuff that went wrong, but see what went right and see what we can do to actually go into 2021 with a real bit of a buzz, okay? With a real bit of a buzz. So we're going to park the real estate conversation for a second. You guys have been working your backsides off. And I want to talk about how we can move forward into 2021 with a genuine belief that we can rock and roll. I'd like to introduce you to Jenny, Victor, and Noreen from Project Optimism. These are three individuals that have got a consistent smile on their face. And I say consistent purposefully. Jenny, I'm going to start with you. How are you going, my dear? Are you ready for Christmas? Is Santa got all of the stockings filled?
Well, thanks, Andy, for having us on today. Wow, what a crazy year it has been. I'm really excited. I think that so many lessons learnt this year and so many wonderful things, with people putting life into priority a little bit. So really kind of looking at what's important and really thinking about what is it that we can take from the crazy time, which we shall not talk about. What can we take from that time that we actually really found extremely beneficial and positive in our lives? And how do we actually transfer that into what is, as Victor calls it, the better normal? So, I'm really excited for 2021. I think that as long as we stay really focused and are clear on our own intentions and how we want to go into the new year, I think there's a lot of hope and optimism out there.
Absolutely. I mean, Noreen, give us a bit of an idea. I mean, what brought this Project Optimism together? Because I'll tell you what, there's some serious players kicking around on this platform already. So tell us, what brought all this about?
I think things changed very dramatically in March of this year, and my own business was greatly affected at Race Party. I'm in the entertainment business, so I had to go into lockdown. I'm still in lockdown effectively. I can't socially distance, and with COVID coming and going and breakouts, we don't know what's going to happen. So we've gone virtual at this stage. So I think at a time that I felt very, very helpless myself in my own business, I just thought, well, what can we do to help others? Because no one was feeling good. So Jenny and I had started Educate to Elevate about 6 months before that. which is an online learning platform. And we thought, gosh, what can we do maybe to actually help people learn, feel better, do something, absorb something new and positive. And then, of course, I've known Victor for a couple of years, and he's just Mr. Optimism. He's the father of Australian optimism as far as I'm concerned. And, we spoke, we chatted, we all spoke. And then we thought, let's just maybe do this. Let's maybe create a platform of learning around optimism, both for business and personal use. And let's start with a signature course, The Habits of an Optimist. And let's let everyone learn bit by bit, practically in daily life, little things like smiling more, laughing more, thinking more, regulating your news, all kinds of other little practical things that you can put into your day that lifts yourself and helps you just cope with whatever else is coming your way. And that's how it all started.
I think the really critical word there is practical in what you just said there. 100% in my opinion. I mean, look, us real estate types, we're an interesting breed. We're an interesting bunch. Change is something that we really tend to struggle with as a general sort of comment. And a lot of the time we are on the go so much that lack of practicality with a heck of a lot of the advice that we tend to receive tends to just go out the window straight away. I think it's one of those ones that I'm pretty sure would be symptomatic in lots of industries where you go to a course, you leave feeling invigorated, and then 48 hours later, you've gone back into your old ways and nothing's really changed, right? So this is where I'm loving the practical nature. I had a bit of a look at the first course that you laid out there, and it is very, very, very practical, very easy, very simple. And that's the other thing. We like simple in real estate as well. We love it because as soon as there's barrier to entry, we haven't got the attention span to go beyond that, right? Across the first barrier. Now, Victor, I'd love to welcome you into this yarn. And I, for one, and I'll say this publicly, you have got some of the more elaborate and spectacular spectacles that I've ever seen. And I, for one, am envious of a guy that can pull that sort of carry-on off, very much so. Victor, give us a bit of an idea, because you've dug into this a little bit more intricately with the study that you did around, what has been making people tick or what has been making people struggle or whatever. So
look, thanks for that, Andy. We're probably Centre for Optimism is now probably one of the world's best research centres for optimism, but it's all around practicality. So, for instance, I did a workshop for the British government on Thursday. They're going into heavy lockdown. It's a miserable winter and maybe no Christmas celebrations for the British. And I shared those habits. And the interesting one, Andy, my father was in real estate, my mother was in real estate, my uncle Victor was in real estate, my uncle Paul was in real estate, my sister was in real estate. I had a sub-agent's license. So I understand the game you're in. And you guys smile well, you laugh well. But one of the things we do in our Habits of the Optimist is suggest a different greeting. So in Australia, if you say to someone, "How are you?" 60% of people say not bad or not too bad. Why ask the question? It's a wasted question and a wasted answer. So my tip for you, Andy, and the listeners, and they get a refund on my presentation if it doesn't work, is this week try, what's the best thing happening? Like, hello, what's been the best thing in your day, or the best thing in your week, or the best thing going on? And you bias the conversation to the positive from the beginning rather than getting a not bad or a not too bad. So we've done a number of big research projects. We've done a big one on strategy. But the one you will find most interesting and your viewers will find most interesting is the better normal. So 3,500 people, over 22 countries, and mind-blowing what people have learned. There was one lady who shared, she said, "I love working from home with my partner. I love taking lunch in the, and best of all, I love an office where I can control the temperature." And as I said to her boss, what office can compete with that? So so the second tip I'd give every one of your folk, is, what did you learn from the lockdown? What did you learn from doing real estate with only 10 people allowed to come into a house? And how can you keep that into 2021? And we've got 1,500 answers on the Centre for Optimism website if your people want to browse it. But the best thing I reckon your guys can do is that the Habits of an Optimist course, which has been built so beautifully by Jenny and Noreen, takes between 50 minutes and 50 years. And it's worth it. It's just a really good for people to do in that downtime between Christmas and New Year. And as you said, you loved it. I haven't met anyone who hasn't loved it yet.
I think there's so many cool bits to unpack with what you just said. I think, well, one of the first things that we normally ask at the start of our show is, how are we getting on out of 10, just to try and provide a bit of a reflection on how people are actually feeling, and it sort of makes them have a think about how it is that they actually are. I mean, that came from 100 Words, Craig Turton and the team there at 100words.org.au, mental health charity that's Melbourne born and bred. So you're absolutely spot on. And I think the critical piece is what you just said at the end there. We need to actually write down and really try and ingrain what are the lessons that we took from 2020, and how can we really embed them into our brains moving forward? Because, Jenny, it's safe to say that consumer behavior has changed forever. The way that people interact and the way that people transact, it has inherently changed forever. So moving forward into 2021, you say you're excited and you deal with a lot of diverse sort of job roles and specifications and all that sort of stuff. Jenny, tell us, how do you feel consumer behavior is going to change, and how do you feel that we can move forward, and how can we make sure that becomes a good thing moving forward?
Look, consumer behavior is fascinating. And, during the whole lockdown period, the logistics sector went into meltdown for all the reasons that the other sectors didn't. Online shopping was out of control. It's really interesting. So there's a lot of schools of thought out there, a lot of conversations going on out there around this. And because people didn't have anywhere to go, they couldn't use disposable income on the things that they normally do. So you couldn't go out to restaurants, you couldn't go to cafes, you couldn't go to the movies or the theater or wherever else you go normally on the weekends, generally in the pub, the bar. You couldn't go to those places. You couldn't go on holidays. So there actually is quite a bit of disposable income in people's pockets. So people have the ability to buy in a different way to what they've had before. Now, obviously, there's conversations around JobKeeper, and when JobKeeper finishes, what's that going to do to the market and so forth. But right now, what is quite evident is that people do have a desire to go and spend. And the economy, from what I can see and from what I'm reading, is actually very active and very, very much pumping out there. I mean, I know from what you're seeing with the real estate market, Andy, it's going off. It's probably the nice way of saying it. So to me, it's about how we think, because I think when everyone went into lockdown, I think it's safe to say that we had zero control. So some industries, like what Noreen was in, just completely, they had no option. So, your village cinemas, your striped bowling, these places, Noreen's amazing race party, they could not trade. It wasn't a matter of thinking outside the square and how can we do something different. They actually couldn't trade. So people needed to not only think outside the square, but stand on their head and, shake their head. And, they needed a completely new way of generating income. And I think the property market was much the same. You could not go out and sell houses. And, by appointment, hard for the industry, really, really hard for the industry. You know, the poor real estate agents have been working around the clock and some. So I think that for me, this time has really been about mindset. So really looking at, well, what can we do? What can we control? And Andy, I don't want to pump you up too much because this is your event, but watching you during this time, let's just say it wasn't the easiest couple of months for you, especially at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you chose how you were going to deal with it. And that, I think, really, if everyone can take that on and keep using that kind of motto, we actually have a choice. And optimism, this is the most exciting part of this whole thing that we've created here. Optimism is a choice. The Dalai Lama says, choose optimism. It feels better. So for us, it's a choice. And so you can choose to have this optimistic lens or not. That part's up to you. So I think if you can apply that lens to consumer behavior and consumer buying patterns and life, I think life's a lot easier.
Look, I could talk to you guys forever and a day. I seriously could. And I think just as a little sort of side note to that, I think who you hang around with certainly plays a massive part in all of this as well, right? You know, who you decide to spend your time with outside of the transactions that you're busting your chops to try and complete and so on and so forth, right? So you do have a choice as to who you spend your time with. Now, Noreen, I want to speak to you about what optimism means for you, because you, like a lot of real estate firms, with the race party was kaput. So what does optimism mean for you moving into 2021?
Great question, actually, because unlike Jenny and Victor, I'm not a natural optimist. I'm a learned optimist, actually. So I've had to really change my mindset in the last 12 months as well. I mean, I've always been very optimistic for everyone else, but not so much for myself. And doing this course, the actual act of doing this course has helped me lift my optimism and my own mindset. But what it really means for me is something, again, really, really practical, really practical. It's about just keeping going, trying, don't beat yourself up too much, and believe that somehow things will work out in the end. And if they don't work out in the end, it's not the end. You just keep going. Little steps, great results at the very end. Great results have come from a million little steps. And really, you can get there. And it might meander, the road might meander, it might do all kinds of weird and crazy, challenging, scary things in the meantime. But you will get there eventually if you just keep going. So that's what optimism means for me. Keeping going and believing things will work out somehow.
So so keeping going and consistency with your behaviors, I believe, is something that I'm hearing from that as well. And that's something that the real estate space generally tends to struggle with. We're very, very seasonal, right? In that when it's a good market, then we're all firing on all cylinders. And then when it's a bad market, it's all doom and gloom and all the rest of it. Victor, I mean, you say you talk to the likes of the British government and me being one of those from the motherland, like I very much know what sort of a mess that they're in the minute. Tell me, Victor, when we talk about consistency, and it's easy to be optimistic when it's going well, right? How, you know, in your infinite wisdom.
Andy, I'm as you know, could you just ask that question again, Andy? I'm just sorry, I got the first half but not the second half.
Yeah, sure, man, sure. So it's easy to be optimistic in a good time, but look, in the property management space, like Victoria's about to go through a whole bunch of legislative changes and whatnot. It's going to cause more interesting times for them. How can you remain optimistic when it's going really, you know, when the road is very, very rough?
Yeah, it's a lot of work I've been doing is with the procurement industry and supply chain industry. And typically, in some senses, they're a bit like a real estate agent. When you meet them, it's hail fellow, well met, it's big smiles, it's a handshake, you ask about their kids or their home. It's very positive. But deep down, you know, it's, as you say, you know, did I sell a house this week? You know, did those bastards down the road, you know, get more listings than me? So the trick is to check in on yourself often. And one of the things I recommend to any business is not every week, but once a month or once every 2 months, round the table, you put on number one on the agenda, what makes you optimistic? And for most people, it's not government, it's not the economy making money, it's not the boss, it's their kids. It's their faith in God. It's having been out in nature. And asking people that question, what makes you optimistic, teaches you a whole lot about that. And so for all of your listeners, all of your viewers, the real piece of homework is ask yourself now, what makes you optimistic? Is it your faith in humanity? Is it your faith in God? Is it life experience? But the real home tonight and ask your partner, your husband, your wife, your kids, what makes them optimistic? Because 9 out of 10 people have never even had the conversation. And you will learn a lot more about your family. And the other thing I wanted to share with you, Andy, that the American military is now starting to use, the Vienna Medical School recommended this 4 weeks ago, big study on sleep and optimism, is sit down with a piece of paper and imagine your best self. So it's a forward-looking imagination exercise. You don't need to show it to anyone else. And between 5 minutes and 10 minutes, just with a piece of paper, what does Andy Reid look like as his best self in 2021 or December 2021? And that is a very, whether it's the medical school in Vienna or the American military, people reckon that's one of the best ways to sustain your personal optimism. And the other one is the one you suggested. You've obviously read Bill George's True North, the Harvard leadership expert. When I asked him what makes him optimistic, do you know what he said, Andy? Surrounding myself with optimists. So when you're choosing the people to have coffee with or choosing the people to have lunch with, don't have the bad-mouthing, sarcastic bastard there. Have the people who lift you up. And if you've got to drop a few people from your coffee group or drop a few people from your lunch group, you will find it very powerful. And Bill George said to me, when I said, what makes you optimistic? He said, being surrounded by positive people, what a blessing. In 6 words, I think he summed it up.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I think there are so many, I think a lot of real estate people are very much like yourself, Noreen, in that, being optimistic, being positive, it very, very much is a learned behavior for a heck of a lot of them. A hell of a lot of judgment, a hell of a lot of self-critique, and a lot of internal judgment within the space that really doesn't contribute towards much positivity. A lot of the internal dialogue within the industry is an issue within the space, particularly for the newer people that come into the space, and then they're very quickly intimidated by, whether it's on social media or in one of the Facebook groups or whatever it is, by the dialogue, the sheer combative dialogue that goes on within the industry. Noreen, what would you recommend to people that are in the space that are feeling sort of conflicted or confronted by some of the internal dialogue that's going on? What would you suggest to them?
Well, look, I think it's what we're all saying here. Surround yourself with as many optimists as you practically possibly can. You have to deal with people. You can't eliminate everyone from your life, but just try and limit their exposure to you mentally and I guess physically as much as you can. And just know that, they aren't the kind of people that you want to be spending too much time with. Do what you have to, take the facts, be practical, and then just get a dose of, upbeatedness from those who are your kinfolk, and choose optimism, because as Jenny says, and the Dalai Lama, it feels better. It feels better. And you can get so much more done as well, Andy. You can get with positive energy. You can run with stuff. But negative, you're kind of pulling yourself uphill. It's hard. So you've got to try and shake that stuff off however way you can. And it's different for everyone.
So good. Jenny, before I let you guys go crack on with your Christmas week, tell us, how can How can we get a hold of some of this information? Have we got a website we can head to, please?
We do. It's www.projectoptimism.com.au. Enjoy every second of it. You just log in. And as we have said, as Victor said earlier, take as much or as little from it as you want, need. Come back and see more. Some of the habits will resonate. There are 14 habits. So some will resonate with some people. Others will resonate with other people. There are a lot of additional resources. If you find a habit really interesting and want to go into it deeper, feel free. It's for you. No one's forcing you to do it. It's all about you choosing. We recommend, as habits, it's not about watching a video and then off you go. Bob's your uncle. You've got it. It's about practice. So we really suggest that you choose a couple that really resonate with you and really kind of jump into those head first. One of the ones that I really find is an easy one, which I think people just don't think about. Number one is smiling. And I think during COVID, we've really learned that, when we've all had our face masks on and you can see people's eyes are smiling, it's just such a delight. So just walk around and smile at people, the positive impact it makes. It's infectious. You smile, they smile, you smile, it just keeps going and going. So I think that's a really, really positive one. The other one, which is so, so basic, is limiting your news intake. And it's something that people don't think about. When you're totally bombarded by the hellish world around us, which we know isn't quite the way it is in reality, it's hard to stay optimistic. So one of the really important habits, which we can all start doing today, is actually really choosing how much news do we want to listen to. So there's something in there for everyone. We encourage everyone to jump in, take from it what resonates with you. You can do it with your team. You can do it by yourself. You can send it to your family. You can send it to people for Christmas to give them a bit of an uplift. Just enjoy. It's our gift to the world. So yeah, we just want people to use it and share it.
And it is free, my friends. It is an absolutely free tool that they have literally gifted to the world, and it is phenomenal. And the really big thing that I'm really keen to stress to my brothers and sisters in real estate is that this is not fluff. This is not some motivational 4-minute nonsense that is almost like an addiction. It's almost like mental heroin, right? It's not good for you in the long term. This is practical stuff that is going to affect in a positive way how you move forward in everything that you do. This is why I've got these guys on this morning, because I just found it so appealing that it wasn't just about fluff and sunshine and rainbows. It was real stuff that can make a big, big change. That law of incremental change that we've spoken about on a few occasions. Lots of little things that creates a huge impact in the end. All right. So look, seriously, on behalf of the real estate space, Victor, Noreen, Jenny, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here with us this Monday, and I appreciate it, especially when we've got Christmas down the road, and Victor's traveling around all over the shop, and we've got all sorts of family commitments and what have you. So I can't thank you enough for the time that you've given us this morning. Victor, I'll just let you have the final word. Is there any sort of final little bits of wisdom that you can impart onto us mere mortals before we let everybody crack on with their Christmas week?
Sorry, can you just ask the question again? Sorry, Andy.
Give us a last little bit of wisdom from your infinite pool of that we can move forward with as we head into next year.
Okay, so this week, don't ask anyone how are you. Just say what's the best thing happening for you, or the best thing in your day, or the best thing in your week, and you will find every conversation lifts you and lifts the other person.
Love it. Love it. Look, on that incredible note, thank you so much. And you can get
yellow glasses or orange glasses.
Yes. Quick, get it on the Christmas list. Look, Victor, Jenny, Noreen, thank you so much. You don't know how much I appreciate it, and I'm sure the real estate space will appreciate it as well. You guys take care. Have yourselves an incredible Christmas, fully deserved, fully earned. And look, I only hope that we can catch up again sometime in 2021.
Would love to.
Thanks, Andy, for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.